Okay, so how did we get here? This is Dr. Ansel Keys. He was a nutrition researcher at the University of Minnesota. Got himself on the cover of Time magazine in 1961. He's the driving force behind what's called the lipid hypothesis in a 7-country study, which I'm going to show you is not true. As a scientist, he had preconceived notions, and that led us into the wrong paradigm. Now, I've heard this story 2 ways. One, that he's a villain, and he did this on purpose. And the other is that he was just trying to follow the evidence. In either case, he led us to the wrong place. He did his research in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, which was a time of, people had a lot of faith in government and large institutions. We had won World War II. The generation that had won it had all the confidence in the world that they could do anything. They came back from the war, they went to college, and they started doing this stuff. Dr. Keys got appointed to the board of the American Heart Association in the early 1960s, and he was able to bring people on that board that believed in his lipid hypothesis. And as a fun fact, he was developer of the World War II K ration. The K actually stands for Keys. Now, I'll just reiterate what the lipid hypothesis is. It's that protein and carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram, and fat has 9 calories per gram. Eating fat makes you fat. Sounds like it might make sense, but I once thought that brown cows gave chocolate milk. Looking out the window, driving to Pennsylvania, that seemed to make sense to me at the time. But I'm going to show you that that's not the case. This is the 7-country study. When I saw this slide when I was researching this, I remembered seeing this in dental school. I believed it. Sometimes it's called the 6-country study because England and Wales is counted as a country, as is England. And it shows that as the amount of fat in your diet increases, the deaths increase over time. Looks like it should make sense. Can I hit the slide? The problem is Dr. Keys had 22 countries worth of data available to him at the time. The first time he gave this presentation was in 1955, and it was met with skepticism. And there were other people that knew this. But anyway, his ideas carried the day. He got appointed to the American Heart Association. This doesn't tell you anything. You have countries out here, like New Zealand and Norway and Portugal, that are eating way more fat than us and have way less heart disease. So there's other things going on. So what should we be doing? We should eat and sleep the way that we were evolved to, and follow what our genetics has done, and done what we've been doing as a species and a genus for longer. That's the Paleolithic lifestyle. Eat large calorie-dense meals, low in carbohydrates. This blunts insulin and snacking desires. Did you ever hear a nutritionist tell you that? They usually tell you to snack during the day so that you're not hungry. All that's doing is giving you pre-diabetes by keeping your insulin levels high. You want to correct the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio in our diet. You do that by eating things like wild-caught fish, organic poultry, and grass-fed meat. You want to stay away from the processed meat, the hot dogs, the Spam, stuff like that. But red meat's back on the menu. Pastured eggs are back on the menu. Bacon is generally considered okay, but there is some processing in that. Minimize chronic stress. I can tell you this, you have to do it. Stress is a problem in our society. We live in a society that values productivity. Nobody ever brags about getting 14 hours of sleep a night anymore. You might brag about getting 4, but not 14. Get the TVs out of your bedrooms. If you charge your cell phone in your bedroom, find another place to do it. You want your bedroom to be a sanctuary? You want it to be as dark as an old darkroom. If you were developing film, you'll find that you sleep much better. Exercise is important, aerobic and heavy weights. And our Paleolithic ancestors in some ways had it much better than us. They only worked about 15 hours a week. And one day they might have to hike 20 miles to kill game, but the next day they were getting firewood in camp. So, it was a lifestyle that was, it wasn't as regimented as ours, and you could die at any moment, you couldn't go to the hospital, but at the same time, they didn't have to be at work for 9 o'clock and have a boss yell at them if they weren't. Intermittent fasting. They didn't always succeed when they hunted, and they went hungry. Your body is very well adapted to starvation modes. And maybe starvation is too strong a word, but if you put yourself into, if your main fuel of your body is fat, you're living on ketone bodies and you're what's a state of ketosis. You're not looking for sugar hits and you're not really very hungry. You should be able to go a minimum of 7 hours without eating, without any problems. I generally don't snack. Once I started this, I realized I was no longer snacking. When I sit down to eat, I eat a lot, but for the first time in my life, I missed lunch one day, and I didn't even realize it. Now, I always ate, but this is amazing because it's the insulin that drives the eating. That what happens is the sugar falls, insulin rises, it sends signals to your brain, sends signals to your stomach that it's hungry, it blocks the leptin so your fat cells are not releasing fat, and you eat every 2 hours. That's why you get hunger pangs at 10:30, or one of the energy drink commercials has a commercial, 2 o'clock feeling or 2:30 feeling. Okay, that only happens when you're gluco-adapted. If you're keto-adapted, that does not happen. Okay, remember this? This is the old food pyramid. Look at that. They want you to eat 6 to 11 servings of bread, or rice, or pasta. That's certainly going to keep your insulin high all day long. But, go to the next slide. The government thinks we're all too dumb to understand what a pyramid is, so they spent $1.7 million to focus group, and they came up with this. That's a true story. You'll notice meat is missing. It says protein. They had open forums with the public, and the vegans, one of the things they insisted on was that. So it says proteins and not meat. So protein could be peanut butter, and you can actually eat a whole vegan diet, because that's why the dairy's over on the side as well. Okay. Well, in the paleo world, we think you're smart enough to understand what a pyramid's for. And the base of it is meat, eggs, fish, poultry, all the green leafy vegetables you want. Remember, our fruit has been bred for sweetness, so yes, you can eat fruit. I do eat fruit, but you don't want to overdo it on the fruit. It is not a fruit diet. Nuts are in the diet, but nuts are also high in omega-6 fatty acids. Walnuts are high in omega-3 fatty acids. You'll see that on the containers, but it's the wrong kind of omega-3s. They're high in short-chain fatty acids, known as ALAs. What your body wants are EPAs and DHAs, which are long-chain fatty acids. And the best way to get those into our diet is to eat things like grass-fed meat. Cows eat grass, convert the grass from the short-chain fatty acids into the long-chain fatty acids. We eat the cows. That's how we evolved. It's that simple.
John, but will you address the best nuts to eat, Jeff? The ones that will give you best chain omega-3 nuts? Not walnuts, almonds, something else, sunflower seeds.
All nuts are fine except peanuts. Peanuts are a bean. So, but again, if you're trying to get your source of omega-3 fatty acids from nuts, it's not really going to work very well. We have a 1% conversion rate, I've read, from ALA to DHA. So you're going to have to eat an awful lot of walnuts. Yeah, you're better off eating wild-caught fish, pastured eggs, which are very easy to get, actually. Meadowbrook Farm sells them, Sprout Creek Farm sells them, there's places on Knoxon Road that sell them. And, you know, it's just in the supermarket, they don't sell them. Okay.
The penal stone, there's certain elements there that are good for the brain.
Well, that very well may be. And I'm not saying my way is the only way to do it. I think it's a good way. And we don't have a long evolutionary history eating legumes or beans, and peanuts are technically beans. So, you know, I don't eat them.
What happens if the type 2 diabetic person goes on a paleo diet? What happens to?
A whole bunch of really good things.
Has there been a study about that?
I don't think there's been case-controlled studies, but the sites I read and a couple of books I've read have people swearing that they lost their diabetes because they went on this type of diet. My guess is that diabetes 5 or 10 years from now is going to be thought of more of a spectrum disorder, like you talk about autism spectrum disorder, diabetic spectrum disorder, where there are various degrees of insulin resistance, and that if you resensitize your body to insulin, and the first step of that is resensitizing your body to leptin, and getting your body to be a fat burner instead of a sugar burner. And like I said before, I can't say it enough, carbohydrates are not an obligate nutrient. And I said I'm down on the ADA, that's not just our ADA, but the American Dietetic Association and the American Diabetes Association all share the same
You're
initials.
talking about refined carbohydrates. You're not talking about a complex carbohydrate. Do you personally eat carbohydrates at all?
I don't eat grains.
I didn't say grains. Carbohydrates.
There are
carbohydrates in plants.
Yes, I eat carbohydrates in plants. Okay, but I don't eat whole grains. Whole grains are not healthy. Okay, but I mean, do I look to eliminate every single carbohydrate from my diet? No, I think that's impossible. Okay, but there are carbohydrates in plants, so I eat them. I mean, if you eat liver, I mean, there's glycogen in beef liver. You know, there's carbohydrates there.
With this diet, are you getting enough fiber?
Wow. Yes. You get the fiber you get is from plants. Like I said, half your plate should be plants. We can do a plate too. But yes, it's not an exclusive meat diet. We don't look for bran fiber, if you will, or excess fiber from grain. I've had no problems with any type of digestive issues.
What happens to a person like who has gout, which is primarily caused by high protein levels? What happens? Or what happens to a diabetic with his kidneys when he shouldn't be overdoing his protein intake? Or, you know, will you address that?
This is not a high protein diet. This is a high fat diet. It's a moderate protein diet. About 30% of your calories should come from protein. If you watch Lustig's Sugar the Bitter Truth, he goes through the whole mechanism of gout formation, and it's coming from the fructose. I'm almost there. Okay. If you want a plate, this is a paleo plate. Yeah, animals, plants, water. Not that hard. Okay. So let's sum it up. Should have gone with the black. Dietary fat, whether saturated or not, is not a cause of obesity, heart disease, or any other chronic disease of civilization. The problem is the carbohydrates in the diet, their effect on insulin secretion, regulation of homeostasis, the entire harmonic ensemble of the human body. The more easily digestible and refined carbohydrates are, the greater their effect on our health, weight, and well-being. Sugars, sucrose, and high fructose corn syrup specifically, are particularly harmful, probably because the combination of fructose and glucose simultaneously elevate insulin levels while overloading the liver with carbohydrates. Through a direct effect on blood sugar, refined carbohydrates, starches, sugars are the dietary causes of coronary heart disease and diabetes. they are most likely the dietary causes of cancer, Alzheimer's disease. I would throw autism in here now as well, and other chronic diseases of civilization. Obesity is a disease of excess fat accumulation, not overeating, and not sedentary behavior. Consuming excess calories does not cause us to grow fatter any more than it causes a child to grow taller. Expending more energy than we consume does not lead to long-term weight loss. It leads to hunger. Fattening and obesity are caused by an imbalance, a disequilibrium in the hormonal regulation of adipose tissue and fat metabolism. Fat synthesis and storage exceed the metabolism of fat from the adipose tissue and its subsequent oxidation. We become leaner when the regulation of these fat tissue is reversed. Insulin is the primary regulator of fat storage. When insulin levels are elevated either chronically or after a meal, we accumulate fat in our fat tissue. When insulin levels fall, we release fat from our fat tissue and use it for fuel. By stimulating insulin secretion, carbohydrates make us fat and ultimately cause obesity. The fewer carbohydrates we consume, the leaner we will be. Finally, by driving fat accumulation, carbohydrates also increase hunger and decrease the amount of energy we expend in metabolism and physical activity. Now that's a lot, and I don't expect you to take my word for it. Gary Taubes' book, Good Calories, Bad Calories, those 10 bullet points can be found on page 454. He spends the first 453 pages explaining why that's the case, and then gives another 100 pages of references to go check that all out. So, you know, it's totally different than what we've been taught, but I've tried it, it works, and I believe that we have a lot of work to do, that we can eliminate tooth decay for ourselves, and we can also eliminate diabetes, obesity, and other diseases of civilization. It's just a matter of finding out how our bodies work and trying to live and eat in accordance with that. Okay, that's it.
That was excellent. So just describe sort of what you eat in a day.
Okay.
When you get up late for breakfast, what do you bring for lunch? What do you have for dinner? If you get hungry at 9 o'clock at night.
Okay.
I know you don't, but.
Okay, I don't actually, but breakfast I'll have half an avocado and a hard-boiled egg. On Sundays, I'll eat a 3-egg omelet. I eat anywhere from 9 to 12 eggs a week. Along with that, I might have some cheese, but the cheese is raw milk cheese that I get from Sprout Creek Farm, which is from grass-fed cows. I'll have some blueberries or blackberries, and I just drink black coffee. Lunch, I usually have a lettuce wrap, and it's usually ham, turkey, liverwurst, something like that. Dinner, wild-caught fish, grass-fed meat. Chicken, I usually buy conventional chicken. All the green vegetables I want. The closest I come to a starch is acorn squash and sweet potatoes. Lots of butter. Adams Farrica Farm sells Kerrygold butter, which is made from pastured cows. Okay, and again, I generally don't eat past 9 o'clock. I will have a drink now and then, which is not paleo, but hey, you gotta live a little.
What was the source of the eggs that you were talking about?